Well, good morning. So this is one of those times in the life of any governor you'd be happy to come to the podium when you've been working a year and a half trying to make sure that our state government is delivering value to all Hoosiers, and knowing where we had come from through COVID, where so much of government got bloated because of what the federal government did, the inflation that they delivered along the way, and given us the whole issue of affordability, and you know where I've come from there. But the one thing you never know is when you campaign on trying to run something more efficiently, does it play out? Well, I think the confidence that I got that would occur eventually is because I ran a business for 37 years. And when you close out your fiscal year, and in just a year and a half of now, despite a faulty forecast, despite many thinking it couldn't be done, that we are in $2 billion better shape than what anyone expected. That's come roughly from running our state government more efficiently, about half of it. And then, if you recall, on the economic development side, we were spending like $55,000 per incentivized job to create a wage of $36. We're spending about 1/3 that amount and raise the wage to $45. That is called value. We've slowed the growth of government, which was trotting along at 3.9%, way above the best GDP growth in the Midwest, which is ours at 2.8%. So we're kind of aligning things. And what it's done is given us options. Part of that economic growth, in terms of doing it on a regional basis, making sure the entire state benefits, doing it synergistically, took us from a 4.4% unemployment rate down to a 3.3%, uncharted territory. Could be one of the best in the country, certainly in the Midwest. We also, on GDP growth, are now growing twice as fast as our neighbor to the west and to the east. 3 times as fast as Kentucky, 6 times as fast as Michigan. What this amounts to is that we now have options. So when it comes to things that we need to do better, the high cost of health care in this state, one of the highest in the country with some of the poorest outcomes. We all struggle with that. That's part of affordability. Of course, I tackled that in my own business nearly 2 decades ago, and we really fixed it based upon prevention and wellness rather than expensive remediation. We wrestled with property taxes, campaigning on it, and in the first budget session, got through that successfully. Homeowners will have 2/3 of their homes exempted from property taxes over the next 5 years. Probably more yet to do. So when it comes to what we want to do through government, we've got the most agile, nimble state government that's being run in a way delivering better value to all Hoosiers. It gives us the option on difficult places like infrastructure, reining in healthcare costs, early childhood learning, to invest, give some relief to taxpayers. 49 other states would love to be in this position, and we as Hoosiers can say that we are. So it gives us flexibility. It enables us to navigate into the future in a way with confidence. And I'm saying in this year and a half, we're probably not through yet on running things more efficiently. And I want to make sure that when we get into this next budget session, legislators are listening to their constituents, remembering that affordability is still the key issue, remembering that was caused by a prior administration, but you can see what I've done with the IURC. You look at these every month, not to mention that we were the only state that was able to give a pause on the high cost of gas. And that, again, we could do it because we're running our state better. One of the benefits of how we've been doing over this last year and a half. Proud of my team when I was able to get 8 entrepreneurs from the private sector that had government experience to lead these cabinets of healthcare, education, energy, transportation. That has been how we've been able to do it. And when you take roughly 70 agencies with over 30,000 employees, that reorganization that we did out of the gate has enabled us to get the results we're looking at today. So it's a moment of pride for the team that is here. Every employee, we're able to give them a raise, which that hasn't occurred in a while, a bonus. And the more we keep doing what we're doing, the more a lot of that, what I've just talked about, is going to be possible into the future. Thank you for being here, and I'll take questions.
Dr. Braun, could you talk about your decision to end race and sex-based state contracting preferences, and can you give concrete examples as to when those sorts of contracts led to the state spending too much money, going over budget, or when a project took longer than anticipated?
So, Supreme Court in June of 23 declared DEI unconstitutional. Every state has been moving at a speed that they can to make sure it's based upon merit, excellence, innovation, not to where you're picking winners and losers. And I've been very clear, discrimination, bigotry will not be tolerated in this state. The old constructs that were there, obviously the Supreme Court said it didn't make sense. So every state has had to get to a point. And when it came to small business contracts with the state, I think this gives more freedom for anyone at the end of the scale where you're a small business to be able to now be in place to benefit from it. So won't impact any contract that's currently in place. It's just getting us in a place to where we're not going to be handicapped by something that got confusing and no longer probably had currency. The AG just recently said that that remnant, that vestige, needed to be changed, and we're doing it completely consistent with what the Supreme Court said in June of 23.
If lawmakers created the ones that created the program, and I think in the 80s, shouldn't they be the ones to change it, or shouldn't the court factor in here?
I think here the legislature can always weigh in on anything, and if they choose to do it, that can be a discussion. But most of this, and around most of the country, it's been done administratively because it was based upon a court order. When that favors something that you want to do, the other side would be all for that. Here, I think the court was clear there because it was causing too many unintended consequences. That's been a decent amount of time. Some states have probably paid no attention to it. They'll probably have issues down the road. We're just doing what constitutionally, what the Supreme Court said we needed to do.
Governor, do you expect any litigation to come out of this? Because let's get this program was created in state statute 43 years ago, and you can't necessarily by executive order.
So almost every executive order I've done, unlike many across the rest of the country, which get litigated often, we do it to where we think we're on solid ground. And so far, we've done a lot of them. It's one way to put a little pep in the step on things we need to get done. And I think for Hoosiers generally, we've not run into that. Litigation, sadly, has become so much a part of the setting out there. You try this on the national level, obviously, that takes 60 senators to agree to. It's always litigated. We've tried to be careful to make sure we're doing what makes common sense and what's not necessarily charting extremely new territory. And when it's clear, when you have something like occurred in June of 23, who knows? You deal with it if it happens.
Are there any actual examples of any complaints over this program? Is this something that you
No, it's just trying to be clear where, let's say, if you were on the other side of the issue, you'd probably be wanting to stick with what that ruling was. Here, to me, it was something that was left in place because I'm going to have a special sensitivity to small business. That's where I built my business. And there are a lot of struggles that come from big government and big business. Big government and big business generally align themselves to the disadvantage of anyone wanting to have a start. And I'm going to always be sensitive to that. But I've based my point of view on freedom and opportunity, no tolerance of bigotry or prejudice, and making sure you don't have a system that's run by bureaucrats where you're picking winners and losers. That's all it's about.
Governor, you said bigotry will not be tolerated. Lieutenant Governor Michael Beckwith over the past few days has called for banning the Muslim call to prayer. He also plans to make a video statement in support of a rally in support of mass deportations in Fishers on August 1st. Do you agree with either of those actions?
I'd suggest you'd ask him about that. I've been clear. Be careful with what you say, even if you think you're saying it well-intended. How you say it makes a difference. And I've been very careful about that because I had 6 years of training in a place where that constantly was trying to be done to get you to say something that you might regret. Here, think before you say it, be careful. If you articulate something in a way that's going to be abrasive, doesn't make sense, you're going to have to be doing a lot of explaining for it.
Do you agree with what you've been calling for?
What's that?
Do you agree with what the Lieutenant Governor's been calling for in these issues?
I'm not going to make an opinion on that because I agree that if you've got a point of view, say it in a way that's not going to cause you probably more trouble than what you're trying to do. I think in that case, I'm a believer in the religious freedom, and the Constitution is quite clear on what makes sense there. And we're a country of free speech. If you're espousing something, though, that does have parts of it, that needs to be litigated in the public discourse. Just be careful how you do it.
Do you have any specifics of where you want to see legislators spend this rosy forecast money in the upcoming?
That now is a great question. So, consider this a blessing. I came from the world of small business and finance. Had to generally fight your way up to where you're always in a position of financial strength. General tip, become savers, investors, and hard workers. The long term becomes easy if you do it. All places have challenges. I've been very clear too. No other governor, no one in the Senate wanted to tackle it. High cost of health care. One side wants a one-payer system. Our side is flat-footed. Fixed it in my own business on wellness and prevention, not expensive remediation, and got my own employees engaged in their own well-being. I want to make sure the stat that we struggle with most, that costs you the most, that can send you to bankruptcy court, is healthcare. But we've talked about all the other ones. IURC, high cost of energy. Anything we're going to do that irritates that has to be discussed. And of course, that brings up other issues that you're aware of. Early childhood learning, which we know is important, that we haven't done as well because we probably haven't had the ability to do it because it will cost a lot when you start, and businesses need to have a strong investment in child care, early childhood learning, because they benefit from it most. So businesses, be willing to put your skin in the game. So long as we put skin in the game, there's a variety of things that we can do better. But when we can say that we are a state that people are moving into, voting with their feet because of largely what they can see, that gives us the advantage of a growing economy. And if we can keep repeating this, which I feel confident that we should be able to, it gives us options that most other states won't have.
So recently for the Mid-States Corridor project.
That's infrastructure, which infrastructure is probably the thing that we did roughly 10 years ago. I was in the Statehouse when we did the last road funding bill, was a co-author of it. And we knew that was going to peak and then wane 24, 25, and 26. It's always been done through user fees. Everybody wants good roads. They generally don't like to pay for it. even if it's through a user fee, the only ones using it. When it comes to any project across the state, Highway 30 would be another one where they want a better 4-lane. Well, who is going to be willing to put skin in the game, and are we going to have the actual funds to do it on our portion as a state? And until we have that conversation more broadly with legislators, the only thing you could turn to is maybe part of general revenues, which we've never done before. So regardless of whether it's a project down south, a project up north, it's going to mean skin in the game. If we want to put any investment into new terrain roads, we're going to have to think about how we fund them long term. That's a long discussion. Everything then gets put into what makes most sense in terms of who's putting the most skin in the game and where we need it the most.
So no private funding?
That is so far down the road in terms of actually happening. You see the place that's got the most done in the shortest period of time is in your county. Well, it's probably best heeled county in Indiana, if not in the country. Their government ended up paying for half of the state's cost. That's why you see 31 looking like an interstate. That's the poster child for what's going to happen around the rest of the state unless legislators want to start tapping into general revenues to do something on infrastructure. I think that would be a long conversation, and we got a lot of other things that will be discussed along with it. Thank you for the questions. They were good. Be happy our state's in this position. And I hope this shows up in your publication and maybe on the front page of the Indy Star as well. Thank you.